Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to be talking about how charities can get the most from Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. Today I've got Nick Murdoch from Chorus and Nav from the Microsoft Tech for Social Impact team joining us. Just wanted to start with a little bit of housekeeping. The webinar is going to be recorded and the resources and all the slides will be sent to everyone at the end of the event. We also have Q&A during this session, so please do pop questions in the Q&A box at the top and we'll get through to those right at the end. Over to you, Nav.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join the webinar today, and I hope you find it useful. But before I start, I just want to say that I think, again, I've got one of the best jobs here at Microsoft. I think I get to work with our partners such as Chorus who do a fantastic job in the non-profit sector. But I also see the amazing stuff that you guys in the non-profit sector are doing as well. So really, really appreciate the time for joining and appreciate the good work that you do there as well. So at Microsoft, we believe that technology is a powerful force for empowering people and organizations. We see it every day in our work, right? Whether it's data and AI helping predict malaria outbreaks or humanitarian organizations delivering digital literacy to displaced people. And we truly believe that the success of the non-profit and the NGO sector is critical to how we achieve our mission as a company. But to do this, we need to make the best of benefits of world-class technology and make it accessible and relevant for non-profits, NGOs and IGOs. So as a customer-first, partner-led company, we always start with the needs of our customers and we work with our partners such as Chorus to deliver the best outcomes for each organization. Next slide, please, Lisa. Thank you. So if we take a look at the world, it's changed so much in profound and fundamental ways. Now, we've seen the role of technology have a positive impact as we've all tried to survive through this pandemic. The level of technology adoption has rapidly accelerated. Now, as we think about that pace of transformation, we have to understand the consequences of that transformation as well as what our role in that transformation is. Next slide, please. So we see a digital divide, an opportunity continuing to grow, but many people are left behind. So the number of children in sub-Saharan Africa that are literate at the age of 10, so that's when you stop learning to read and you read to learn, is 10%. So 90% of children can't read in sub-Saharan Africa. That means they can't get a job. That means the economic opportunity gap is growing, and COVID had an impact, and technology has a role to play. We also look at the persistent fundamental rights issues. We see tragic and unlawful wars unfolding, and we're seeing human rights today and every day on the news being violated all over the world, and technology has a role to play. We see an urgent climate crisis. In 2021, at the end of June, it was 106 degrees Fahrenheit in Seattle. In the Netherlands, it was also boiling at that time. Now, that's not normal, and I believe we've also just had the hottest January on record. And there's a role for technology to play in supporting the world to become a cooler, better place. And then there's this diminishing trust in big tech organizations. There are questions about our motives, our motivations, and it's critical that we apply technology and innovations to address these challenges without sacrificing our core values like trust, privacy, transparency, and inclusion. Next slide, please. So we realized that we needed to evolve and think about a different business model role in supporting societal changes and organizations and non-profits like you guys that serve this purpose. So back in 2017, Microsoft Philanthropies brought its contribution efforts together with commercial sales and business development to create Tech for Social Impact. We created Tech for Social Impact to empower every non-profit and humanitarian organization to accelerate social good. Now, as we work to help everyone achieve more, we're committed to sharing our learnings and reporting our progress across a variety of societal causes, such as affordable housing, digital skilling, and climate change, just to name a few. Now, to give you a couple of examples, Microsoft has reduced 21 million metric tons of carbon dioxide, equivalent by our top suppliers. And each month, we analyze over 470 billion emails for malware and phishing attempts. So we combine our grants with non-profit commercial engagement in a single team to accelerate impact through technology, deliver solutions to empower social breakthroughs, and help accelerate our philanthropic efforts through our efforts and those of our partners such as Chorus. So globally, non-profits received 1.9 billion in donated or discounted technology and services. But that's not all. We don't only provide technology grants, we also reinvest any profit made from our discounted sales to larger charities back in the sector to help the smaller ones. We give free software to those with 10 or fewer employees, which makes up about 80% of the world's 4 million non-profit organizations. And we also help non-profits modify software to help meet their specific needs, such as fundraising and mobilizing volunteers, in part connecting them with willing helpers in the company's global partner ecosystem. And we also offer free digital skills training. So as of March 2021, over 30 million learners were reached as part of our Global Skills Initiative. And we're committed to helping in the following ways. So if we look at affordable technology solutions, we work closely with non-profits to create purpose-built solutions on technologies across our product stacks. We're committed to helping non-profits get access to the best practices, reference architectures, and faster data insights. Capacity building. So just delivering technology isn't the whole answer here. So in Tech for Social Impact, we recognize that the capacity building is often the key to successful adoption of new digital technology. So that's why we're committed to helping organizations get access to training and certifications to improve your digital skills. Then we take a look at the Microsoft partner ecosystem. We leverage tens of thousands of commercial partners, such as Chorus, to create a healthy ecosystem dedicated to delivering solutions and services designed specifically for the non-profit sector. And then lastly, the social investment model. So incremental funds after costs go back into the team and charitable contributions. Next slide, please. So the work that we do in Tech for Social Impact and the broader philanthropies is probably some of the best and most powerful work in bringing the pillars that we mentioned to life. The Tech for Social Impact team is truly committed to this sector and the idea that it's absolutely core to our mission to empower every nonprofit and international development organization with technology to accelerate social good. And we've got some examples of how we directly impact the societal pillars. Let's just take a look at a couple, please. Next slide, please. Right, thank you. So our partnership with UNICEF is a great example of how we directly support inclusive economic growth. So as I mentioned to you guys a couple of minutes ago, 10% of children aged 10 in sub-Saharan Africa can read and 90% cannot. UNICEF terms this gap learning poverty. Now, if you can't read, it's very hard to learn, which in turn impacts your economic prospects. So through our Learning Passport partnership, we've deployed community training to assist crisis in 23 countries and 20 more are in process. Millions of kids are registered and nearly 300,000 have completed training. And some of the hardest reached locations are adopting the fastest. The two biggest adopters with tens of thousands of kids learning are Laos and Somalia. Next slide, please. And then we look at our impact in committing to a sustainable future. Who's helping us there? The National Forest Foundation is a non-profit that works and preserve, protect wildlife habitat and forestry across 193 million acres of national forest system. So in partnership with Threshold World, the National Forest Foundation was able to implement our Microsoft Cloud and non-profit solutions. They're now able to track donor dollars, quantify the impact of their work and further their mission of environmental restoration and conservation. So each dollar they raise translates directly to another tree that's planted or preserved. Next slide, please. Thank you. So how do we protect fundamental rights? We all know Barnardos, UK-based non-profit. It connects hundreds of thousands of families and children in need with valuable social services each year. Barnardos is especially passionate about protecting the fundamental rights, safety and health of children. So to best make most of those connections, they must ensure that employees have the right technology they need to work efficiently and accurately. And the organisation also needs to show potential donors that the work they're doing has a concrete impact. So by deploying Microsoft Cloud technologies and Surface devices, Barnardos has helped employees be more effective in the field. And it's also gained valuable reporting capabilities that have been essential in securing funding to meet the increased demand for services, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. Slide, please. So there's a number of offers that are available from Microsoft to help you guys. Please reach out to Chorus to ensure that you are registered as a non-profit with Microsoft and you are taking advantage of these offers, which are available straight off the bat if you're a non-profit. You should be taking advantage of all of these offers and more. And if there's any concerns or if there's any doubts, if you're registered, please reach out to Chorus and we can help you with the process. I'll put the link in the chat as well around how to register and the eligibility checker as well. So please take advantage of these offers. Next slide, please. So supporting non-profits is part of who we are at Tech for Social Impact. It's in our DNA. We've been engaged with non-profits since 1983 with the inception of our employee giving campaign. But our work's only just begun. This year marks, I believe, 7th year anniversary of Tech for Social Impact, and we're more motivated than ever. Reaching our vision at real scale requires a broad base of amazing teammates in the non-profit in every corner of the globe. So in 2020 to 2022, we provided 3.8 billion in grants and discounted software and services. And we also equipped 325,000 non-profit organizations with modern, secure and scalable Microsoft Cloud solutions. Now, just to put those numbers into perspective, if we were a country in terms of giving back, we'd probably be sort of the 12th or 13th largest company globally in terms of giving back. So huge numbers and growing year on year. And then July 2020, we launched an initiative to help 25 million people worldwide acquire the digital skills that are needed in a COVID-19 economy. So hopefully that demonstrates that everything we do is driven by this deep sense of purpose and timeless values of trust, privacy, transparency and inclusion. And they're the values that our customers have come to expect of us and that today's fast changing society requires of us. Next slide, please. So just to wrap up, the question really is, what is our role in modern day? Milton Friedman, who's a renowned economist, he said that the role of a company is to serve its shareholders and that greed is good. But the definition has definitely evolved because it turns out that companies don't operate in some parallel universe or vacuum outside of the planet. We are all affected by the world around us, whether it's global warming or it's poverty or it's our next market in Africa. Billions of people are affected. So the new definition of what a company needs to do, as every company, came from the Business Roundtable, which is 181 CEOs. And they all come together and they say the role of a company is not just to serve its shareholders, but the role of a company is to serve its stakeholders. Now, our stakeholders are our employees, our partners, such as Chorus, and most importantly, it's our customers, you guys. That's the communities that we operate in. And the philosophy is pretty simple. Companies that can do more should do more. And I think we at Microsoft with the TSI program are doing more. So with that, I would like to thank you all for joining, taking the time today, and a massive thanks again for all of the great work that you do in the non-profit sector. I'll pass you back to Lisa. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Nav. Really appreciate that. That was fantastic. So now we're going to be going over to Nick. Nick, if you can kick off.
Yeah, will do. Thank you, Lisa. So what I'd like to do is just talk through a little bit about getting the most out of your Dynamics 365 and Power Platform deployment. So we're going to have a little talk about just normal CRM challenges. They're not Dynamics specific, they're just CRM challenges, things that we hear from the community day in, day out when we're talking to prospects and customers about what they're experiencing at the moment. We'll then have a look at why we should move over to Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. What does that give us? What would be our motivation? And then hopefully share with you some tips to get the most out of your 365 and Power Platform. And then we'll talk a little bit at the end about our accelerator that we have in-house at Chorus called Evo 365 and what that brings to the table. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, so challenges with a CRM system. They are numerous. This is not all of them, but these are some of the big ones that we hear about. And they kind of snowball one into the next, really, kind of combining to give the experience of needing to move. So things like an inflexible system. So you may be on a CRM system that's fairly old-fashioned. It is what it is. It's off the shelf. It can't change very quickly or easily. You may not be able to gain data insights or meaningful business intelligence. So there's not much point in capturing all of this data other than on a one-to-one basis of serving the customer. Why are you capturing it all? Every piece of data should have a reason for being in your database, and you should make it work for you. So gaining those insights is super important. Poor user adoption. So a lot of the time we talk to organizations who say people don't use the system. They don't trust the data that's in it. And they can't get them onto it. Maybe it's too complicated for them. So really, like I said, these things all bleed one into the next. So having an inflexible system means that you can't really do anything about the poor user adoption other than put in place processes that force people into it, which then kind of snowballs into a kind of resenting the system and not wanting to use it, which just makes things worse. Keeping control of ongoing costs is a big one for any organization, but obviously within the not-for-profit sector, making sure every penny counts, really important. And then we go on with poor data quality, as I said, leads to poor user adoption and limited integration options. Again, it all combines to kind of fuel this fire of this CRM system is not working for us. Okay, next slide. Okay, so why would we move over to Dynamics 365? Well, firstly, we're moving on to Microsoft technology. So a lot of organizations like to move over everything kind of as where they can into the Microsoft stack, just because everything plays better together. We have better security and governance. So things like Entra ID within Azure and being able to put in conditional access, multi-factor authentication, all of that world for accessing your customers' data really helps the security in the system. And governance, so things like the center of excellence within the Power Platform. So being able to control these changes as we go through the system is really important. We have increased integration capabilities. So the thousands and thousands of connectors available within the Power Platform allow us to push and pull data here and there, not just within the platform, but also within third-party systems. So integration is really easy. And if it's not there, building it is super easy as well. Automation and processes. So again, if we think back to the previous slide about that kind of static system that can't adapt, and the user adoption being a problem, actually being able to automate processes and build on that really increases user adoption. If we can free up time for users so they're not doing the mundane repeated tasks and they're actually working on things like increasing members, increasing the number of recurring donations or retaining recurring donations, that is far more important than having to do the same thing again. So processing sign-up letters and thank yous and sending out welcome packs. If we can do that, then users will start wanting to be in the system because they'll be doing things that they feel makes a change. Data management for that world of BI. So we've got Microsoft Fabric mentioned in there. So Power BI and Fabric going hand in hand to be able to pull information from different systems, pulling it together, combining it so that we can have a broad suite of business intelligence, not just focused on one system. And then ultimately, it's a future-proof platform. It's constantly growing. Microsoft do a fantastic job of keeping the platform dynamic and moving forwards with the times, introducing things like Copilot and AI and customer intelligence, as well as just new functionality to kind of baseline functions that have been in the system for ages. And they're doing that twice a year. We have major updates. Constantly through the year, we have minor updates. So it's constantly evolving for us. Next slide, Lisa. Okay, so how do we get the most out of this system? If you're already using Dynamics 365, what are some kind of key aspects to think about? We've kind of broken these down into long-term and short-term values, and some of these you may be doing, some of them you might not be doing, but hopefully this will give you kind of an idea of things to just keep in mind. So in the long-term camp, we've got why is Dynamics there? So really important question that people tend to forget about. We at Chorus, we do a lot of projects where we will pick up a dynamic system that is already in place. It may have been there for a few years and it's just kind of got a bit stagnant, various reasons that we're coming in. And one of my first questions is always to try and ascertain why Dynamics is there. And it's important because as soon as you start moving away from that fact, you start bending the system to try and meet needs that it might not want to meet. It might be needing to, you might be wanting to try and do invoice processing through it, but in fact, actually that should probably be in a finance system. So keep it to where it wants to be and you'll find the journey is a lot easier. If you start trying to veer away, you can totally do it, but you've just got to understand that there are trade-offs for doing that. Okay, get the foundations right and then expand further. So keep it small. Build your core of the system solid. Make sure it works before you start layering on. So a really good example of this is, let's say that you want to implement a portal for your donors or your members, depending on your organization. Get the back office right first before you start layering on a portal. The last thing you want to do is not be sure of your back office processes and then have the public coming in and seeing all of those kind of holes or difficulties that you're having with your processes. So get the foundations right. It will lead to being able to build up in the future. And if you get it right, building in the future is easier as well. So when you're building the foundations, it's important to let your partner know what the end goal is so that we know that we're not backing into a corner. If we want to move left, then we know that we're heading in that direction. If we want to move right, we're heading in that direction. Okay, integrations is a really good topic. So integrations are by far the best thing about these systems, being able to make things, like I say, remove mundane processes of human error, having to transfer files from A to B or manually input. But really consider what you mean by an integration. You don't necessarily have to pull data into CRM for it to be integrated. So quite often the motivation for an integration is to get a full view of a customer. And let's say that customer, let's take transaction history, for example. So a donation history. You've got a couple of options. Let's say most of your donations are processed through a payment provider. You could pull every single record into Dynamics through an integration, pull it in and everything's in there. Or you can have a button to click and show you a summary window of looking at the data on the third party. Or you can have a button to click and it takes you to the third party. All of those give you the access to the data that you need. But some of those are a lot less work, a lot less future technical debt. So you don't have to keep it updated. You've got to remember everything that you build. You need to keep on top of those those changes that happen within technology. So just stepping back and saying, okay, we want to integrate this data. Why do we want to integrate it? What is it bringing to the table? And where on that kind of scale do we see this integration? Do we need it to be fully rich, or do we just need to see the information so that we can make educated decisions and conversations about it? This one is one that comes from picking up those projects that I was talking about. Start as you mean to go on with your release management. The Power Platform is a fantastic platform for rapid development, for empowering users and power users within organizations to create wonderful Power Apps and model-driven apps and tables and Power Automates. Fantastic, but keep the governance up. Just because it's easy to do doesn't mean that you should be doing it straight in a production system. Try and implement at least a development and production system. Ultimately, these systems become business critical, and the last thing that you want is someone to be developing away on production, hit the wrong button, suddenly a load of data is overridden, and you can't get it back, or you have to restore back, and then some other people lose some data. If you keep that best practice release management in place, you won't have that issue, and you can also keep on top of it. Okay, so last one, costs. Ongoing costs. The two biggest ones are data storage and licensing. Really consider what data you need to keep. Again, it refers back a little bit to point 3 around integration. So you've got to remember, if you're going to bring that data in, you're going to pay for that data every single month that it's in there. Try not to hoard your data. If you can, get it back out of the system and get it into a warehouse or into a data lake where it's safe and you can keep hold of it. Just try to limit what you're holding on to. And with your licensing, work with your partner. So we do a lot of work with our customers at Chorus, making sure that they are covered by their licensing, but they're not covered too much. There is a plethora of licensing options when it comes to the Power Platform, from per app licenses to per user licenses, and really identifying who is using the system, how they're using the system is key to bringing that licensing cost down. Okay, so like I said, with data storage, think about where your data is. Implement things like duplicate detection and alternate keys. So for those that don't know the difference, duplicate detection are those rules that you can put in and says, if someone goes onto the system and they've got the same first name as last name as someone else in the system, I would like a screen to pop up to say, could you please let me know that there's another one in there? Alternate keys are a hard rule, because with that duplicate detection, I have the option to ignore. With an alternate key, it will not let it in. So if I put an alternate key on email address, there is no way that an email address is ever going into the system more than once. And you can combine fields together to create a key. So you may have a combination of first name, last name, and email address. That has to be unique. They are really, really useful for keeping your data clean. Review your bulk deletion jobs, review your audit log retention, and have a good data retention policy. They all go kind of hand in hand. It's all about not hoarding your data, really asking, why do we want to keep this data? Is it just it's quite nice? The biggest one I see is mass mailings. So thousands and thousands and thousands of records going into the system for 6 years history, saying that someone received a bulk mail on the 1st of June in 2004. There has to be a question of whether or not that is actually useful information 20 odd years on or whatever. And on the licensing front, like I said, review your licensing levels. Are you paying for the right levels that you need? Can you get away with Power Apps licenses versus Dynamics 365 licenses? There are nuances. And just so that you're aware, the new commerce experience is coming. So you will start having to consider whether you want to have an annual commitment or a monthly commitment. Okay, so short terms. Some of you may know there is a fantastic integration with Teams for calls. So if you have outgoing calls to, I'll simplify it to phone numbers, you can have click to dial inside Dynamics within a few clicks of configuration. You can even have customer insights, call insights, and call recording on those phone calls. So it will actually store the transcript. If you record the call, it will store the transcript inside Dynamics. You can flag specific words as keywords to flag up. It's fantastic. It will look at sentiment, all sorts of things. So it's a really good one to have a look at. Validation rules to maintain data quality. So this goes back to what I was talking about with the duplicate detection and also alternate keys. Try and identify those specific tables. So contacts and accounts, leads, if you use them, are super important. The ultimate goal for all of us is to have a person in your CRM system only once. It gets a little bit difficult with rules sometimes when, if I sign up for my grandfather for a recurring donation, I might put his first name, last name, and my email address in. But I'm also in the system as me with my email address. So there are nuances, and it's important to notice those and to keep those in check. But if you can't put validation rules in, implement processes where you have a data owner who is keeping an eye on certain views and marking records as, yep, I've acknowledged that that is not a duplicate, but it looks like it might be a duplicate. Build something around it. Automate where you can. So there is actually I'm going to get the name of it wrong, but there is a process engine within the Power Platform where you can send out a little executable to your team and say, can everyone do this process whilst recording their steps? And it will give you a view of how everyone attacks the same process so that you can identify, well, if we automate that bit, we could save a lot of time for a lot of people. If we automate that bit, we can save time. Even if you're not going to send that out, you can just take a step back and go, okay, well, what are the things that people are repeating day in, day out? Can we automate those things? Because like I said, it's all about freeing them up to do, I'll say, useful work, work that benefits the organization rather than the mundane fulfillment, etc., etc. You can use Power Apps for quick capture forms. So usually it comes in the form of a Canvas app. Canvas apps are fantastic little kind of, if you do one screen ones, they're brilliant. And in fact, there is a co-pilot within the Maker portal where you can describe the Canvas app that you want, and it will actually generate a one-page Canvas app for you. Again, going back to what I was saying, that's to be used in conjunction with a good release management process, or even talk to us and find out about spinning up developer environments if you would like to have a play around with these things outside of your regular development environment. But consider those Canvas apps, things like expense login, or if someone is on the front desk and needs to just be able to note down a phone call super quick, but they don't want to go into the full-blown Dynamics environment in a model-driven app. You just want it nice and simple. Perfect place to be in a Canvas app. Make the most out of AI and Copilot. It's as Nav was saying, it's really gaining momentum. There are Copilots popping up everywhere. There is in fact a Copilot studio that sits alongside the Power Platform where you can create your own Copilots. Does awesome things like if you have a website that everyone goes to gain information, or a file that everyone goes to, you can generate a Copilot, point it to the website, point it to the file, and then you can ask that Copilot information about that file. You can embed it in Teams, you can embed it in lots of different places, but have a look at it, talk to us about it. It's phenomenal. And the most important thing, so going way back to that first slide about issues, user adoption. Ask your users for feedback. triage the feedback, try and group it together, form user groups within the organization to try and keep things moving. It's the more involved in the system users are, the more likely it is that they're going to use it. I've seen phenomenal differences between implementations that really exclude the users and keep them at arm's length for whatever reason, and those that just allow users to come in and say, oh, if you move that field up there, that would be really useful. Just moving that field has a tremendous effect on your user base and their want to use the system, because they look at it, they have a piece in it, and they actually they feel some kind of ownership of it. Okay, so last slide from me. Evo 365. So this is our accelerator for not-for-profits. Basically it's a collection of tables and business processes and automations to try and go from 0 to 80% of an implementation of Dynamics 365 in a not-for-profit environment. So we have a few different elements to it. The two main ones are fundraising, so philanthropy, so trust and grant application management, and income and donations, gift aid, major donors, all that kind of world of philanthropy, basically replacing what is normally a spreadsheet when we go into organizations, of keeping an eye on who have we talked to, who are we asking, how much are we asking for, what's the likelihood. It's really, at the end of the day, it's sales pipeline management, but geared towards the not-for-profits. And then we have recurring giving, so management of recurring gifts. That might be just donations, or it could be for a membership. We have a fantastic integration with direct debit processor Go Cardless. It's a rich two-way integration. It means that if people cancel their mandates within the bank, Dynamics is updated near real time to say this membership has been cancelled or is about to lapse. And that really frees everyone up for member retention processes. So again, we're taking out that mundane having to download files from your CRM system that says this is everyone who's cancelled and this is everyone who's signed up and this is everyone who needs to pay, uploading them to a BAX and then downloading another file from BAX that says this is everyone that's cancelled, this is everyone that's paid. If we can get rid of all of that work, then someone is freed up to be able to do more work about new signups, etc., etc. So it's something we're very proud of. We've been working on it for 6-7 years, and it's really helping a lot of people. Okay, so next steps and resources. So we've got the couple of links there. I believe these slides are going out to everyone. So relates to the 365 release plans, Microsoft not-for-profit offers, and some Evo 365 information. Do get in touch with us if you'd like a Dynamics 365 review. If you're current users, we can have a look at your storage, your licensing, and your technical setup. Make sure that best practices are being adhered to, give some advice on how, if they're not, how can we start gearing over and moving into that world. And if you'd like a demo of 365, contact us and we can book one in. Any questions?
Amazing, thanks, Nick. Yeah, we've got a few popped into the chat and also in the Q&A box. I'll start the ones in the chat. So, Nick, this is for you. In relation to storage, can you support linking to files, documents in SharePoint so the bulkier data is stored elsewhere but still accessible from Dynamics?
Yep, so out of the box, there is a server-side integration with SharePoint, which gives you on an entity, if you click on documents, it will render basically a SharePoint list and allow you to store the documents within SharePoint. But as far as the user is concerned, it looks like it's within Dynamics, but that's brilliant because it means it's going in with not just the licensing cost, but all the governance that exists within SharePoint as well. It's worth saying that in terms of storage costs within the Dataverse, there are 3 flavors of storage. We have data storage, file storage, and log storage. So data takes care of, as the name suggests, data. So data that you've entered onto records. files are file storage, and they are actually costed at a different rate to the data. And then we have log storage, which takes care of audit logs and that kind of world. So there are different levels. I believe behind the scenes, the file storage is actually blob storage. And that's why it can be less than the data storage. It moved over to that way a couple of years ago, which was a welcome relief for everyone.
I've got another one. Does Teams integration support SLA management? So, for example, time to answer, length of call, etc.
It's a really good question. It does. I know that it does categorize short calls. You can set it up so that if it's a super short call, it will try and categorize it into a not answered, voicemail, etc. Aside from that, I think most of the functionality comes from the Teams element rather than the integration element, but I would have to have a look into the specifics on it, I'm afraid.
No problem. Few others that I've got here. What tends to be the biggest cost of Dynamics 365 implementation?
If the organization is coming from an existing CRM system, so it's not those rare unicorns of we have absolutely nothing and make us a CRM system, which pretty much never happens, then data migration is definitely the one that needs to be factored in. It's just a bit of a time sink because generally we'll come from systems, as the first slide suggested, where data is not great. And one of the motivations to move systems is to move into one where the data is great. But unfortunately, you can't do the old moving house thing of put everything in a box and just put it in a loft. When you need to sort the data out on the way. So it's just, there's no getting away from it. And the less data that you take, so the less boarding that you do, the easier that job is. So if you're, as you can imagine, it's a lot easier to sift through 1 year of data rather than 6 years of data, or just the people that we talk to rather than the people that have possibly touched upon our organization in the last 6 years. So when it comes to doing that implementation, just really consider, again, similar to an integration, what you actually need and why do you need it? Can you get away with just keeping a backup of the database somewhere where if you are going to be audited at some point, you can open it up and you can get the information that you need out? There's no point in going through all of the heartache of doing all of this work to actually never need to kind of benefit from it.
Nice. I've actually got a couple more. So can Dynamics 365 handle charity tasks such as gift aid?
Dynamics not out the box, but in our Evo 365 accelerator, we have got an integration with the HMRC gateway to allow building of a gift aid batch and then submission to the gateway. So again, we're getting rid of those file downloads, file uploads. Okay, now I've got to do a reconciliation. The system can take care of that for you.
Nathan, I've got one last one here. Does Dynamics have field level auditing?
It does, yes. So audit comes on the field level. You can actually expand it out to access level as well. And you can specify which fields are audited. So you'll always get a who changed it, when did they change it, what was it before, and what is it now. You can even offload those audits into Microsoft 365 audits as well. You just have to make sure you again, consider those retention periods.
Amazing. That's it for questions. If anyone has any others, feel free to pop them in the box. Like I mentioned earlier, I'll be sending out a copy of the slides and the recording. So if you haven't had a chance to ask a question or something else crops up, feel free to reply to that email and I can pass it on to the relevant person to answer. Thank you very much, Nav and Nick, and thanks everyone else for attending. And I hope you found that useful.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.